Good start.
Okay. And I unfortunately just lost the screen. Okay, here we are. All right. Okay, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the December 10th meeting of the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission. I really should have printed this out. Let's begin by starting the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a Wetton family member who is a flag bearer for us this evening. Commissioner Lee, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance as your baptism this evening?
All right, thank you. Do we stand up for this?
I don't think we have been, just because.
I did notice I was at the city council meeting last night, and they do make a practice of standing up, but I think only if you're able and feeling
I
up
will
to
go
it.
up with you. So lucky I'm not in a swimsuit.
I'm in Rome.
Okay, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you very much. Well done. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is approval. Oh, sorry, roll call. So
Mr.
I think,
Fuentes will be calling it out.
yes, exactly. Okay.
Commissioner Lee,
Here,
Commissioner Bush, not present. Commissioner Martos,
Present.
Vice Chair Wetton,
Here.
Chair Israeli.
Here. Okay. And hopefully Commissioner Bush will join us.
Could jump in real quick, Chair.
Yes. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Just wanted to point out for tonight's meeting, because we are on Zoom, there are 3 ways for the public to engage. One is the chat feature found in Zoom. If they press that, they can type in something and then staff will read it 2 to 3 minutes worth to the discretion of the chair. The other way is the raise hand feature. They're raising it, they can speak again 2 to 3 minutes at the discretion of the chair. And the last one would be they can email staff at publiccomment@burlingame.org. And by doing that, staff will read the email as much as we can in 2 to 3 minutes. I also like to point out, if we have any motions tonight, it'll be done on roll call, and where we obviously will call out each commissioner's name and they will say yay, nay, or abstain, that type of thing. So back to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for reading the COVID procedurals. Okay, let's move to number 4, which is the approval of minutes from the November 12th meeting. I think there was a change, at least one. Did everyone get a chance to review those, and are there any further changes? I didn't see. Oh, there's Commissioner.
Yeah, Commissioner Bush. Sorry.
Commissioner Bush?
Hey, sorry about that.
Oh, there he is. In the Marin Headlands. Commissioner Bush, welcome.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bush, did you have any additional changes or anything you need to alter for the minutes from the last meeting?
No.
Okay, great. All right, then let's go ahead and approve those.
All right.
Commissioner Lee,
abstain.
Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Martos,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wetton,
Yes.
Chair Israeli.
Yes. Okay, great. We'll now move on to item number 5, which are public comments that are non-agenda items. These are items that we can listen to but cannot discuss as they are not part of the agenda. Do we have any emailed, anyone that has something to speak about?
We do not.
We do not. Okay, excellent. Okay, well, that was short. Let's move then to item number 6A, which is the BPAC update, which is an informational item only. I don't think we have.
I don't see Ms. Through the chair, I'm sorry. I don't see Ms. Beatty online. And
I believe it was going to be Madeline. Is she there?
oh, she is
I see
there.
her name.
I believe it might be Madeline this evening.
Okay, we'll go ahead and, whoops. Unmute her.
Thanks. Yeah, I was gonna do it on the actual agenda item topic, but it's been a long week, so I'm gonna make it now and then make dinner.
Oh,
But
wait, sorry. I'm sorry. What are you going to give us the BPAC update at this point?
yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm just gonna do that now. So the BPAC, so I just want to thank the BPAC would like to thank the commission for putting the California Drive and Truesdale item on the agenda tonight, in addition to staff for putting together a presentation for this fix. Basically, BPAC just generally supports this fix. We think it's simple and good. We know it's from the kind of like the Vision Zero suggestions for traffic calming for left-hand turns. So we just like to say thank you for putting this on the agenda. And then we'd also support additionally any improvements that would help shorten the crosswalk on Truesdale, because Truesdale is certainly part of this equation. It's a very wide street. And so additionally, any improvements that could be made to help shorten that crosswalk there, whether it's like a refuge island or something like that, we would also be supportive. But we're also just generally think the Hardened center line is makes a lot of sense and is simple. So that's all.
Thank you very much. And then if I can just ask you to clarify, when you said the other crossing at Truesdale, do you mean at Com Ave in Truesdale as opposed to California in Truesdale? I wasn't 100% sure.
California Drive.
Oh my gosh, you can tell I lived in Boston for 17 years. El Camino and Truesdale, not Com Ave. Did you mean El Camino and Truesdale sort of on the east side of Truesdale?
So there's one crosswalk on Truesdale at California Drive. That's the one I was referring to. The one that basically connects from that connects to like the police station. So it's just that California Drive and Truesdale crosswalk, because Truesdale is very wide, and so BPAC would just like to also point out that anything that can be done there potentially to help kind of like decrease the length of that crossing.
I guess so. There is a little triangle there now, if I'm correct, right?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. I thought maybe you, I looked ahead at the agenda presentation, so I thought maybe you meant another intersection as well. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. That was nice to have a BPAC update. Let's go ahead and move on to item 6B, which is the revisiting the proposed parking time restriction options for the new parking garage.
All right, that'll be me. Thank you, Chair Israel. Yes, we will be reviewing. I think you guys have this, but let's just take a. All right. All right, so yes, we'll be reviewing the proposed parking time restriction. Actually, this is a carryover from last meeting, where we had talked about the different options we can do with the new parking structure, and just jumping into it. So at the last meeting, we looked at two options. Option A, which would have dedicated the upper 3 levels to long-term parking, and then the lower 2 levels to short-term parking. Option B would have been dedicate the entire structure to long-term parking, and then change some of the existing on-street exchange some of the long-term parking that's on-street, particularly on Howard, into short-term parking. And so the option selected at that time by the commission was option B, to go with doing that. So we're going to follow and show you kind of the just the math associated with the parking spaces, so you get a better idea. I'd like to also add, and this is a very small sample size, and I'll touch on this a little bit more later. The parking enforcement officers, the guys who check the boxes and unfortunately write the citations, but they were, I just kind of conference with them on some of this, and they're fine with some of the changes, even the permits. But the feedback I got was some of the merchants, for when we converted Lot W, weren't happy about that. They liked the long-term parking there. However, in contrast, while I was out on Howard itself, I had mentioned some of the businesses that we'd be converting. Teaspoon was considering converting the spaces to 2 hours on Howard, and they were in support of that. So we'll get into this a little later of how to kind of follow up on this. But again, here's where we are. This is our downtown, and the area we're looking at is that section of Howard from El Camino to California Drive. And it consists of about 17 10-hour spaces and 81 4-hour spaces for a total of 97 parking spaces in total along that stretch. So we go back to what we had before. The upper 3 levels that we are initially considered for the to replace the parking taken away from Lot N and Lot F, we had 221 spaces. Previously, we had 206 spaces, so that's a increase of 15 long-term spaces. So hopefully we can follow on, don't confuse you too much. The lower 2 levels had a total of 116 spaces. So if we were to convert the entire garage long-term and convert the spaces on Howard, we take away the 116 from the 97, that gives us another 19 long-term spaces. So in essence, we're picking up 34 long-term spaces with this, but we're conversely picking up 97 97 short-term spaces on Howard if we convert all those. So that was some of the feedback. The feedback we got from the businesses, we discussed this at our pre-agenda meeting. I've kind of gotten our economic development specialist to, I think we potentially poll to get the idea of some of the businesses, what their feelings are along Howard. Again, we have some of the feedback from previous meetings about parking and the location of where it is, but just to kind of get an idea then, if there's some questions that Teaspoon would like to ask the businesses while we're at it. The biggest one was, do you support the conversion of switching this over to short-term parking along the stretch? Because again, there's a number of businesses there, definitely quite a few eateries that might benefit from this for short term. But again, if you want to park long term, the long term parking garage isn't far from many. I mean, Howard's the closest commercial area to that. So yes, so hopefully tonight we can get that we're moving in the right direction, and then potentially some questions that we can add to a poll that we would provide to Joe Sanfilipino, and he would send that to DBID. So with that, I turn it back over to Chair Israel. Oh, sorry, one last thing. Former Commissioner Launder, he did have a couple questions that I'd like to, and he's been already apprised of these answers, but for the rest of the commission, overnight parking is allowed for the EV chargers. This facility is 24/7, just like the parking lot X and City Hall. So you can charge all day. Well, I'm sorry, not all day, overnight, because when those spaces are needed in the day, we change that back. And there was the question of elevators, because it is a 5-level structure. I was incorrect. There will be 2 elevators, one on Lorton and one for Highland. So sorry, now I am done. Thank you.
That's okay. Great. I don't know that we really need to discuss this since we discussed it at last meeting. I think we had just asked for those numbers. And I assume Mr. Wong will then the businesses being sent notice that they can attend the next meeting when we, after we get their surveys back and questionnaire about how they're feeling about this?
Sure, and either we'll work through the D-bid and just have them, because they have all the contact information for those businesses, and so somehow we will at least invite them. That's all we can do.
Okay, thank you. Is there any commissioner who has a burning question or burning need to bring something up on this topic this evening?
I just was wondering if Engineer Wong knows if, I've been in some parking garages where the lights go off if there's no movement, and it can be very creepy and scary. So I'm thinking about myself if I was a woman working late in December and it's dark and you're trying to go to your parking garage, level 3, do the lights stay on the whole time, or are they going to flash on and off with movement? Then you have people perhaps charging overnight, sleeping in their car. So I'm just wondering, what's the atmosphere at night going to be walking back there? Because we might still want some on-street long-term parking, because I might feel real creepy going to only having the option of a parking garage at night in the dark, like now in December, January, February.
Mr. Wong, do you have any information?
Through the chair, I do not have the exact answer. Maybe Sergeant Perna does, but I will say, obviously our parking lot lights are left on the existing lots when they're, so I would, and especially with the LEDs that are probably, this facility will be as state of the art as we can afford at this time, but I'm sure we'll have, because the LED lighting, which is obviously not going to burn the electric bill. So, but if Officer Perna may know, but if not, we'll get back to you on that. But
I actually agree with her with the commissioner that the light should not go off.
Yeah.
We had an issue years ago where people would sleep in there because the lights, like transients would sleep in there because the lights would go off. So I could reach out as well to who's handling that and just inquire and make the recommendation as well that the lights stay on. I mean, they could go to maybe like a lower mode. I don't know if that's an issue, but she's right. It gets dark at the sun goes down at like 4:30. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, it's dark. It doesn't even have to be midnight. At 7 o'clock, it can be dark in there. So I agree that we should make that recommendation.
Thank you. Okay. And then I think Vice Chair Wetton, I saw your hand was also raised. Did you have the same question?
I didn't have that question. I think I just quick comment, I guess. Well, one, I assume there's no members of the public who want to comment on this. And we should check that. But while I'm on, I just, my quick comment is that two things. One, to answer the question that was asked, if we have questions of the merchants, I think when we do these surveys, and we've done more than one now, the one thing I really want to get from any merchant is, how many employees do you have who drive? Where are they coming from? Are they all driving alone? And if you know, where are they parking? So I just think that's essential. I don't, in a perfect world, we'd have really robust data from the entire business district on that. We've never been able to achieve that. Although I would note that in the bicycle pedestrian master plan, there was I did catch a statistic on that about where Burlingame employees lived. And I was really excited because I think that's something we've tried to figure out for a long time in our own informal surveys. So that's one, to answer your question, Mr. Wong. And then two, just a comment, which is, of course I want to hear feedback and I want to get data. We always do, but I have to say, I feel pretty strongly about this one in terms of option A versus option B. If we were to pursue option A and put short-term parking in the Highland garage, the likely outcome would be people would be parking in the short-term spaces to shop downtown, walking by long-term spaces on Howard to get to a further distance to get to stores in downtown, and you could probably count on a lot of shoppers not finding their way. Oh, thank you. The visual was very helpful. So Highland Garage in the bottom right corner, the downtown, and you see Burlingame Avenue there in the center, and the visual is helpful. So, you know, not only would you be forcing shoppers to traverse a much longer distance to where they're likely going for multiple trips, if you assume multiple people are parking a day, but you're probably going to have some fall off where people don't know, that they just don't find the spot in the Highland Garage, as opposed to seeing the on-street parking at Howard when they're coming to shop and they're circling. So I feel strongly we're doing the right thing with option B. And I just want to add on lot W, one, we didn't really fully do that until COVID had hit. So we have really no useful data in the long term in terms of the utility of the conversion of lot W. And we're not going to know until life goes back to normal. And once again, I would just add, with the addition of the garage, if there are merchants who really liked having that convenient lot W, there's a big parking garage for long-term parking 2 blocks down. And that lot W, is right next to our downtown. And so when things do get busy, knock wood, at some point again, I think lot W will be, I think we will be really glad that we opened up lot W to shoppers. And I don't think we're going to get data telling us we're right or wrong until life goes back to normal. And the last thing I'll say about that is, you know, it might pay off to have some wayfinding to lot W. Lot W's location is excellent. And, you know, you can walk out the back and be on Park Road right off Burlingame Avenue in the middle of the farmer's market. So it's an excellent location. It's a little bit hidden. If you're not from Burlingame, you may not know to go there. So we may want to have some wayfinding there. I know it's a little off topic, but since you brought it up. And then finally, when we talk about replacement parking, where we're foregoing all these short-term spaces in the first 2 levels of lot N, we're for the most part, we're replacing it on Howard Ave. I do think there are a couple other places, a couple other opportunities where we could convert to short-term parking. I think lot K is a pretty good place to do it. Since we're already gaining all these short-term spaces on Howard, I think lot K is a good place to do it. That would be one. I mean, possibly I see, you know, we still have 4-hour parking in lot V. We still have some 4-hour parking in lot D. So there's a few places around town where we're still allowing people to park a half day, where now that we have a long-term lot for them, you know, we could, if we feel like we need to, claim some more long-term spaces for short-term. And, you know, we'll talk about this later, commissioner comments, but, you know, with the discussions around the town square and potentially losing even more parking at the core in the long term, or parklets in the short term, being greedy for those converting to short-term spots on the street level, I think is an important goal for us. So sorry, I know that's a bunch of stuff when we weren't planning to get into a deep discussion, but I thought it was all things worth flagging and noting.
Thank you. And I'm sure we will still be discussing this again once we get the feedback from the local businesses. So you are correct. I did not ask, Commissioner Martos, I see a little blue hand next to your name. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I would. I'm glad you noticed the electric hand raising at you. Very good. So I think we did make a good decision last time to go with long-term parking, option B. And I'm very much in favor of converting Howard to short-term parking. So I echo a lot of what Vice Chair Wetton said. One thing, Mr. Wong, that I would like to ask the merchants, I'm a big advocate of trying to incentivize people to park in that lot. And the people that I'm really looking to incentivize are the people that work in the downtown area. Let's get them off the streets. Let's put them in that lot. If right now it's $3, I know we had an open agenda item to discuss the rates. I was in favor of $2 or something less than $3, something to incentivize. And we're only talking about $1. But here would be a question you may want to ask the merchants. Would they be willing to pay for daily parking for their workers in that lot? You're only talking a couple bucks a day for each worker. And if it opens up more short-term parking because the workers aren't parking in those spots, then it may bring in more business. It's just something to float if the employees are having trouble with paying $3 or $2. It's not a lot, but it's the principle of it, I think. So that might be something you may want to float by the merchants if they would be willing or interested in giving their employees some incentive like that to park in that lot. And that's all I really wanted to say there, Chair. Thank you. I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you. That's a really good point.
Sorry, through the chair, back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that Mr. Wong?
Yes, I just wanted a clarification while we're still on Commissioner Martos. When you say incentivize, were you talking employers subsidize or pay for the employees, or are we talking what reduced rate the employees might pay? Just
either way. I mean, we as a commission talked about reducing the rate to try and incentivize people. Whatever that rate is, would the merchants be willing to provide that as a benefit to their employees?
Maybe we'll just put it out there that currently it's $3 a day for long-term parking, regardless if you pay daily or you pay for the permit. And maybe we'll just say some sort of reduced rate upon that. I don't want to put out some number, ask for some number that's not feasible.
I don't want to put guidelines on what the rate should be. I don't think that's really our charter. But we do want, and we as a commission do want to try and make those valuable short-term spaces available to shoppers and try and incentivize the people that work in the downtown area to use the lots on the perimeter. So however we can do that, I'm going to be in favor of.
I think that is a really good point. I don't want to forget that by the time we discuss it more fully. Okay, I see also Vice Chair Wetton, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Bush hasn't spoken yet. So let me recognize Commissioner Bush.
Thank you.
Blue hand is up.
Yes. Yes, I think I agree with Vice Chair Wetton that I think that we should try and gauge interest in converting some of the other long-term lots in terms of like what I guess sort of if they were prioritizing like long-term spaces, like which ones would they prioritize? I agree, like K1, and then I guess I always think that the first floor of A should be short-term as well, and that only the second floor of A should be long-term. And so I think that like I know it's a little bit beyond the purview of this specific question, but I think that it's an overall we're overall like sort of adding an additional 34 spaces of long-term parking. I think that we should also be sort of gauging where else we could cut out from the core of currently long-term parking and turning it into short-term parking.
Okay, yeah, that could be something that we look at next. Once we get this new garage situation completely settled in Howard, and then we can juggle. That will be the new chair's job next year. But good point. Okay, Commissioner Lee, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Going back, piggybacking on Commissioner Martos's comment, just that to incentivize employers to perhaps resell monthly passes to either the employer or the employee for reduced rate. So if it's $3 a day, that's $60 a month. We sell it for $50 a month, but it's for level 4 and level 5 that they park up there in the long-term parking garage. That was just my suggestion, that we do incentivize long-term parking, get them off for a month. And then it could even be a Christmas gift to an employee, for example, that you give them this packet or a monthly pass. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chair. Sorry, I jumped too fast.
I do see one more blue hand, Vice Chair Wetton. It's
Yeah. So I'm going to say very little because Commissioner Lee, she's off to a good start. That was exactly what I was going to suggest when I heard Commissioner Martos talk about incentives. I think we have talked about discounted permits in the past, and this is a great way to do it, where if you're willing to park all the way up on the 5th floor of this lot, of this building, and stay out of the way, maybe you pay $40 or $50 a month instead of 60. And I love Commissioner Lee's idea, although I don't think it's anything we can do, but I love the idea of employers using that as hiring incentives and holiday bonuses. Maybe the city can print up a version of the permit with a bow or something to make that a more appealing idea for employers. But I think it's an excellent idea. That's why I had my hand up as well.
great. Minds think alike. Okay, and then I was in error. I did not ask if there was any public comment on this agenda item because I did not see any members of the public with hands raised, but did we receive any emails, or is there anyone else who needs to speak about this particular point from the public?
No emails were received.
Yeah. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Great. So we look forward to hearing back about the merchants and what they have to say. But I think I just anticipate that will be something that will go very well. So our next agenda item is coming back to the consideration of applying California Vehicle Code Section 22514B and modifying the parking restriction distance at a fire hydrant, which we mentioned at last meeting. Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Chair Israel. Let me grab the next one. As you said, we're looking at the consideration of applying California Vehicle Code 22514B and modifying the parking restriction distance at fire hydrants. So as in the staff report, we have right now, there are only 3 ways per the vehicle code that you can park near a hydrant. One, if a person's in the vehicle, is licensed, and they're in the front seat, they can move in case of emergency. The local authority adopts an ordinance or resolution reducing that distance. And then the other is if you're indeed driving a fire vehicle. What we're going to try to do here and take the council, I'm sorry, in addition to that, right now our Muni code allows the city engineer or her designee to mark out and paint the red curbing. So which is why you've seen it, we do red tipping all over, we paint the hydrants. So we were able to do that with our own, just issuing a work order and taking a looking at it. But what we'd like to do, just as more of a bookkeeping exercise, because some of our locations, while still useful, do not meet the vehicle code because we do not have an ordinance or resolution that allows us to do that. So we're just going to take this to the council to have them adopt, so we have it in the books and it allows us to do that. And the reason is let's go over. Here's what it looks like. Here's some of our locations out there. As you can see, vehicle code asks for 15 feet on each side. On the curb side, on the corner towards the street side, the cross street, we've probably got that, but it also goes into a street. Here, we're shy of it. In this particular case, we're shy about 12 feet. As you can imagine, our parking standards range between 18 feet long to 22 feet long. So 18 or 12 from 18 is significant. We could be reducing parking in our residential neighborhoods in particular. So again, what we're trying to do is go from this 15 down to 10. And if we go less than 10, we would confer with the fire department and make sure it still meets their needs. And so again, revising or providing an ordinance that we have that allows us to do that. And in speaking with the fire department, the biggest reasons that they have that is obviously they do not park. They may park there, but the goal of that red curbing isn't for them to park a truck there because their engines and some of their other apparatus far exceed 15 or 30 feet. The reasoning for the red curbing is to visibility of the hydrants, as well as when they pull the hose up to have access so they're not trying to squeeze between two cars. Additionally, what's out there to help them, it's redundant. They have something else. If you've seen those blue pavement markers that are usually out on the street, you know, you've seen the yellow and the white reflectives, they're blue ones. And those blue ones indicate the location of a fire hydrant for when they're driving down the street, they could see it afar without even seeing it. So there's some redundancy built into the system already. So staff's recommendation is to allow for less than 15 feet clearance at fire hydrants, marking them with red curbing. We'll evaluate these on a case-by-case basis. We're not case-by-case basis. We're not going to go out and paint everything tomorrow, but we will also enlist input from the fire department just to make sure what we put in is what they can use. Additionally, as you know, our curbs tend to fade, and when they do fade, we will work with our corp yard to let us know which ones are shy of that, and so we'll evaluate those as they come in. So with that, concludes this presentation, and let's get some feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this something, Mr. Wong, after our discussion that we will need to make a motion for, or is this so that you can bring it to City Council, or is this just for discussion tonight? You
can discuss, and I mean, you could just say if you support our approach, and then at least we have that when we take it to City Council, let's just say Teaspoon supported this effort.
Okay, in that case, let's quickly go through the commissioners. I don't think there's any need for a deep discussion, but I do want to make sure that everyone has questions and their chance to ask any questions and express their feelings about this. So why don't we start with Commissioner Martos?
So I have no questions. I'm in favor as long as the fire department is involved in the distancing on a case-by-case basis. So I'm fine with this.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
I approve it also.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Bush?
I concur with Commissioner Martos.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Wetton?
Yeah, and just to clarify, the fire department is on board with this specific proposal as well, that they're comfortable with the city passing the ordinance to obtain the flexibility. And
through the chair, yes. I mean, part of it is there's a certain distance they already have access to, so they're comfortable with it. We're just trying to kind of memorialize it. We're trying to make sure that we're covered. We're in compliance with the CVC. So okay. Functionally out there, I mean, hydrants are the way they are. So they've been able to access those, but yes, they are in support of this.
Okay, then I concur with the other commissioners.
Just in case Chair Martos, or sorry, Commissioner Martos, gave him the big bump too soon, has raised his hand.
Oh yes, he has. If you don't mind, let me just make one quick comment and then I will come to you again, Commissioner Martos, I will not forget. I just wanted to ask Mr. Wong, you had mentioned 10 feet. Is like 10 feet gonna kind of be your goal, or is that just, you're gonna sometimes do 3 feet, sometimes 5 feet? I just wanted to see, you know, if that was your goal or just a number that we were using for illustration.
Sure, and through the chair, and that's where the case-by-case basis comes, because for every red tipping that we do go out there and take a look, and it's just not like just painted red. We want to see if we're going to be dropping a parking space, because we know how sensitive the neighborhoods are. So we'll see how much we put in, and you know, maybe we'll mark out 10 feet, and then we'll see how far the distance is to how many spaces we have with that. And again, if there's not a loss of space, then that's it's a no-brainer. It's when we come to that and we have to say, well, how much do we need? Do we need to keep a couple feet? You know, obviously we need to keep 10 feet in order to do that. We're probably going to lose a space if that's the case. But so that's what we mean by case basis.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm in favor as well. And then Commissioner Martos, did you have another comment?
I did. I had a question for Mr. Wong through the chair. Mr. Wong, so do we have any idea how many hydrants would be considered in this program? You showed a hydrant that had a very short section of red paint against it. Is that typical of all the hydrants in Burlingame? Is this going to be pretty extensive? As you mentioned, as we start red curving this up to 10 feet, we may start losing parking spaces. So I'm just curious how extensive this program is going to reach out there.
Well, again, as through the chair, as they come to us for curb, you know, when we need to repaint the curb, we'll take a look at it then. We're just not going to start knocking them out. And then, you know, potentially we don't lose anything. We may lose some, but that's where we'll work with the fire department. Because right now, you've seen examples out there. Those are what's out there now, and they're able to access those. I won't say it's definitely not compliant, but they're able to access it. So it's that finding the fine line. You know, our goal is not to remove all the residential parking to do this. I mean, yeah, I mean, they're going to send a lot of people to our commission, angry people to our commission meetings. But yes, so that's what we're trying to look at. And some of those may change and some may not, just given what we and the fire department determine.
Great. Then I think in that case, Mr. Wong, you can let the City Council know that we were all in favor.
Thank you.
I don't see any public comments. I assume there are none.
None were received.
Thank you. So moving forward, then let's move to item 6D, the California.
I'm sorry, through the chair. I mean, would it be helpful to do a vote on this, just where we move to approve staff's recommendation?
Sure. Make it official.
We can make it official. So who wants to make the motion?
I'll move to approve of city staff's recommendation regarding the fire hydrant order.
I'll second it. Adrian Lee.
Okay. Liliana, would you like to do the roll call for voting?
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Martos,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wetton,
Aye.
Chair Israelit.
Aye. Okay, great. So then let's, now at this point, let's move on to California Drive Truesdale safety enhancements.
All right.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Wong, as you are presenting, if you don't mind, since I was absent for the, not last meeting, but the prior meeting, I wasn't sure exactly where the incident occurred, where the pedestrian was harmed. So when you do put up the diagram and discuss that, would you mind just pointing that out for me?
Sure, and I'll show you what I have, and then if you have a question of where it is, I don't know the exact details of that.
Okay.
Where the Sergeant Perna made, but this is the intersection. I think Miss Madeline was concerned about it. She had pointed out, but we jump into it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sorry. Again, we'll talk about the enhancements, safety enhancements we want to do at the California and Truesdale intersection. Here we have, in this direction, obviously California Drive, we have our police station here, and Truesdale Drive. Truesdale controlled by stop signs. And here you can see our class 2 bicycle facility in this with the green back, with the conflict zone with the green back here, as well as the northbound bicycle facility. Give you a quick aerial. Again, Truesdale, California, the police station on the bottom and a senior facility up on top. When you go out there, and you've all been out there, all along the eastern side here, there's no parking. It's signed no parking, and to accommodate both to accommodate the bicycle facility that we have there. And then the southbound direction, there's just a little parking right here near the intersection. It's for loading, and then the rest of it around here is a red zone, and around the police station, also a red zone. So when you look at the intersection, if we go back one slide, visibility for this intersection is pretty clear. I mean, there's no trees blocking things, there's no parked vehicles. So the other item, typically what's happened here has been some broadsides, meaning failure to yield. I think it's been the biggest code violation. And so what we thought about is something that we can prove, as they pointed out earlier, was something called a hardened center line. What's happening is, and this isn't a copy of Truesdale, California, but it gives you an idea. It's an intersection. And so you have a vehicle here moving, we'll call it northbound, the up direction. This is movement A. And so folks do, when you're going pretty quick, you might want to clip this corner. When you clip that corner, you expand this red area. We're calling it's called a pedestrian conflict zone. So that's anywhere a pedestrian could be walking and anywhere a car could be turning at this point that may be that they're in conflict. Potentially someone could get hit in the crosswalk if someone's there. So that's vehicle movement A. That's what we're trying to eliminate with this. What we're trying to do is, you see vehicle B, someone's come out further into the intersection and made a tighter turn. And by doing that, they can only go into these two lanes. They reduce that conflict area that someone might be injured in or potentially a conflict. So that's what we're our goal here. If you look at the second slide to your right, here's the center line. And that's what they've attempted to do here. They've extended the center line even past the intersection at some points. But you'll see on the next slides, they've actually raised the intersection, called the Hardened center line. They've made it, they've given some verticality to it. And, and folks, we don't have any of these examples yet, but when for any of you who've driven past our pedestrian paddles we have at the intersections, you should be going a little slower when you go through those, because if you get too tight up against it, and they have been hit, but you can hit it. So folks tend to slow down a little bit when there's a little bit of, even a curve, right? An island, there's a little bit of, I'll call it verticality. But so we've got that there. And then here, you can see right here, that's the extension. It's a little rubber bump, a little extension that kind of forces everyone, as you can see, this vehicle's not cutting the corner here, it's going around it. So what that means is not only are you reducing that pedestrian conflict zone, the vehicles have to go slower because they can't take that turn faster, most vehicles. So that's the goal, to have them take that gently turn. And by doing that, they are, they're able to see a little bit more. Things are moving a little slower to them, right? Oncoming vehicles, people in the crosswalk. So that's the goal of what we're trying to do with this. Next slide will be, I got this, but I've seen in other places, it's New York City did a pilot program back in 2016. They piloted about 100 locations. This is one of the methods they use, a hardened center line. They have a couple of others, but the whole study was about reducing left turn speeds as well as that pedestrian conflict area. As you can see, when you look at item 1 here, they did 100 locations. They reduced the median speeds about almost 25%, from about 11.5 miles an hour to just under 9 miles per hour. Safer turns, the vehicles didn't cross the double yellow almost 100% of the time. And then the trade-off for us is, about 60% of those treatments are in working condition, right? Some have been flattened, delineators knocked out. So there's going to be some maintenance involved with this that we'll have to see, if when we put it in, how much of it's going to happen. Since 2016, New York's also, they've installed it at 260 locations. And for Commissioner Wetton, Commissioner Bush, the photo earlier was at the west end and 96th Street in Manhattan. So if you guys know that, you can talk to the rest of the commission about your experiences there. Obviously, this pilot was done in New York City. It's also it's been done in some new locations in San Francisco, where I've seen it, and then Portland, Oregon. So we're definitely not on the cutting edge, but big cities have used it to try to address the same problem we're trying to address. So with that, obtain your comments, feedback, as well as any community members that might have some here. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. So we're now comparing Burlingame and Manhattan. This might be the first time ever. Are there any public comments?
None were received.
Oh,
Thank you. Oh, I think
thank you.
it looks like Madeline has her blue hand up. Madeline, would you like to speak?
Yes, thanks. I'm back again, but just speaking for myself now. Again, I'd just like to thank the commission for letting this issue bubble up and be put on the agenda, and then also thank staff again for putting this presentation together. I think I fully support this fix. I think it's fairly simple and fairly elegant, and is also something that will pay great dividends that I know is hard to, I know that sort of like gets abstracted in these conversations, but this is a fix that really can prevent collisions in the future. And of course, on California Drive, it's such a vital corridor. We have commuters, and when life returns to normal, and as Burlingame grows and Facebook opens, a lot of people will be crossing there, riding bikes and driving. So this really is something that I think can prevent a lot of collisions. So again, thank you for commissioners and staff for putting this on the map, and I'm really excited to test it out in Burlingame. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Are there, also Mr. Beal, is that a Christopher Beal? Do you appear to have your hand up as well?
Oops.
Oh, hand went away. So did
Hands down. No, I did that.
Oh.
I'm trying to unmute him now.
Oh, okay.
There we
Mr.
go.
Beal, did you have something to say?
Hi, yes, Christopher Bell here. I just wanted to say that my regards and thanks to commission and staff for proposing this idea. I support it through BPAC, but also on a personal note, my friend Richard Jones, who lives in Burlingame, was recently struck at this intersection traveling southbound by a car making a left-hand turn while he was riding his bike. And after 6 weeks in ACL surgery and some time off, he is now finally back on the bike and doing better. But I do believe this could have been avoided, and it could have been avoided with engineering such as been presented tonight. So I'm really happy to see that staff and council are taking steps to prevent the situation that Richard incurred from ever happening again. So thank you, and that's all.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, let's move to commissioner comments. I'm going to start at the bottom. Commissioner Martos, would you like to lead?
I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. Sure.
Sorry, in the list, merely the list.
Okay. That's what you meant. Okay. I have a question for Mr. Wong through the chair. This is a fine alternative. The 60% that New York has that are still functional, and the other 40% need maintenance, I think you showed on your slide, something like that. So are there other alternatives that have the same functionality that we could consider, like a concrete divider 3 inches tall or something like that? I don't know what other alternatives there could be that we could consider that may not require as much maintenance. And I'm assuming the maintenance is those yellow poles get hammered or run over and have to be replaced on occasion. So are other things that could be considered?
Through the chair, we can look at that. Again, we could pilot this, right? I mean, these are, relatively speaking, compared to concrete and asphalt, it's relatively cheap, right? Where they are striping. These are those things we talk about, the quick builds. However, there's also a trade-off. This is a centerline versus if you do an island, you'd have to make the island a little wider, probably at least 3 feet wide, just because otherwise it floats out there and potentially it can get hit if you make that centerline island. Also, the drawback of that that means we have to pick up that 3 feet from somewhere, right? And there's no parking out there. We've got bike lanes and lane lines. So that's the balance. But there's, obviously, if we find some issue with this, we'll go back to the drawing board. But yeah, right now we could look at that, but it's difficult because of those trade-offs.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that info. I wasn't thinking of a 3-foot island, and I know we can't claim any more real estate on California. That would be a bad thing. So in that situation, then I'm in favor of this. I like the idea, especially hearing from people from the BPAC, and they're in favor of it. We definitely need to do something there at that corner. So I would be in favor of this.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee, can we hear from you, please?
Yes, hi, thank you. First I had a question, and then I just wanted to confirm I understood, Mr. Wong, where the yellow bollards, these yellow crash bollards would go. So if you were a driver northbound wanting to make a left turn, these yellow bollards would be on your left.
Correct.
And they would be extending further into the intersection so that closer to a 90-degree turn is required by the driver.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
So first I'd like to say thank you. I think it's great to have this as a pilot program. I think it's a wonderful improvement, and hopefully it'll reduce collisions like the one that Richard had that's sent him flying, I heard, 30 feet through the air, very badly injured. So I think this is wonderful. I like the speed at which staff and Teaspoon and everyone is reacting and engaging on this. And the place where I see that's also difficult are the pedestrians crossing there. If you see where that white truck is in the photo. The pedestrians crossing, it's very soft turns and a very wide intersection to cross. That is a disability home across the street there from the police department. Lots of people are out there all the time, and they're not able-bodied. And obviously you're near BART, you're near the hospital. Lots of pedestrian generators are there. So it's also a difficult spot for pedestrians to cross. So I have a little drawing. Does it show? I don't know if you can see it. Can anyone see this? Would be to use the same idea.
Could you raise it up a little higher?
I can't, I don't have a shot of myself, so I don't know. Can you see it now? Am I in the right spot?
Yes.
So where the pedestrians cross, to do this similar idea with the yellow bollards, maybe give them 5 feet of yellow bollards. So you'd be stealing a little bit of lane width from the lane close, the north side lane, but it's plenty wide. It's like way too wide because it's kind of scary to cross there. So to give the pedestrians a little bit of hope, and then in front of the crosswalk, meaning further east between the crosswalk and the bike lane, perhaps do one of those raised humps with the yellow stripes on it, which would be virtually no maintenance required, just to give the pedestrians some visibility, safety, a little refuge island. Just while we're out there, make this a pilot program too. So I just thought of a way to make it a little bit better. And we're there, so I'd like to just share that with staff and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, we'll take a look at that. However, when you go, just pointing out one of the things makes it difficult on ours is putting something here. Extending here is difficult because that puts us right into the bike lane. So that's something we kind of looked at, but we couldn't match something we might do here. Potentially we could put a hardened center line here as well, but it couldn't extend into the intersection very far. It won't be able to extend in the intersection because we've got the bike lane right there, and obviously that's an impairment.
Oh, Mr. Wong, maybe I said it poorly. It would be parallel to the bike lane, not perpendicular. So it would be between the crosswalk and the bike lane.
And we could look at that.
This way.
We'll have to see how wide, because I can't recall how many receiving lanes are right here on Truesdale. It may be 2 lanes, and we'd have to look at that, do a little additional work on that study. So.
All right, but I'm thinking like 5 feet. It's really wide. It's kind of a scary one to cross as a pedestrian. So thank you for looking into it, Mr. Long.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Bush, can we hear from you, please?
I like this idea a lot. I mean, I think that it's relatively simple. I guess the one question that I had was, do we think that the maintenance will be less given its location in front of the police station as a deterrent? And I guess the other question is like, you know, given that we only have one, it seems as though like it'll make it easier to like keep in compliance if that's the only one we have to like maintain and look out for. And I think there again, I think our friendly police force will notify us when there's problems with it. I guess what are your thoughts on that?
Through chair, yeah, I mean, it's just like the pedestrian paddles. I mean, if we start seeing it where it gets, you know, they're knocked down on a routine basis, we may have to revisit this because, you know, those pedestrian paddles, you know, themselves are a couple $100 a pop. So we've got those all over the city, and, you know, our yard purchases enough to replace and then to install, but, you know, we have to balance it, right? Because we didn't envision having that to store, for them to have to store and keep, and just the budget for that. So, you know, this is the pilot one. This is the one we try, and we see how it goes, and then we go back and see what other cities, because obviously, I'm sure New York City, as much as, you know, they have a bigger budget than Burlingame, they can't be looking forward to replacing these on that often.
Right. Well, and they also have more reckless drivers, I would hazard. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. No, I think I'm in support of it. I guess the other question I had is, it seems as though the Hardened Center is still effective without the like that additional verticality. It's more like notice to drivers, so they don't like mess up their alignment. So like the effectiveness isn't altered by like missing those vertical signals, right?
Well, the other thing is you like to have that verticality because you don't want to be the first one in the middle of the night driving down that and hit that, right? At a high speed. I mean, then we're not doing our due diligence to let them, to make them aware. So that's why you need that, because again, this is back to the discussion with quick discussion with Commissioner Martos. If you, I mean, you could, we have curbs that are that wide, right? 6 inches, less than that, right? But the problem is you have that floating out there. No one sees it. We call it target value. If cars are going to hit it, you see when cars make a turn, they bump up against. I know in San Francisco where they've got some of the protected facilities, it's a 3-foot curb and people still hit it. And, you know, that's a liability because for the city. So having that verticality doesn't necessarily need to be that high, but having that does help. I mean, even though it's yellow, I mean, people will hit it, right? I mean, it just depends how fast they're going. And so again, we're trying to reduce speeds, and the more we have out there, the more they're aware of it, the more they're going to slow down from a distance, right? Even so.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. I'm in favor of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Watton.
Yes, a few points. I think not only is this a good idea, but I think it might be an idea that we would want to scale. I think in defense of New York drivers, New York drivers are trained to make those left turns at sharp right angles. So you're taught in New York to go deep into the intersection and make the left so that you're actually turning left behind other left turners. And no one in California does that or is told to do that. So building this little bit of infrastructure to encourage that, I think is a great idea. And I'm really glad we're doing it. And I think this is a smart way to do it. And I'm 100% in favor. I would add one other thing, which is, this is true, I think, in a lot of spots in Burlingame, and it's true in a lot of spots in El Camino where we don't have complete control. But if you look at a map, if you're making a left turn on to Truesdale, if you're going, I should say, northbound, and I'm air quoting that because it's not really northbound northbound on California and you make a left onto Truesdale, you are facing due west. And the sun at sundown might be right in your eyes, right? So if you make that left turn from the vantage point we're looking at here, you're going to be facing due west. And at whatever sundown is, depending on the season, you have the sun in your eyes. If there's a pedestrian there, it's high risk. And we've seen, sadly, we've seen people lose their lives exactly for exactly that reason in Burlingame. So reducing the area of conflict is probably the best thing we can do. It's not going to totally fix it because it's just an inherent problem in terms of where the streets are laid out, but it will help, and reducing the speeds will help. So I think this seems to be universally liked by BPAC and commissioners so far, and I'm with everybody. I think it's good. And I'll just note for Mr. Wong, that block on West End Avenue, that's very close to where my grandfather lived when he was young. So yes, I have enough roots in New York that wherever you go, I probably could tell you something like that. But yeah. And then last thing, we talked about this in the pre-agenda meeting. We can bring it up later in the sergeant's report too, but this all came about because of this bad accident that happened on Truesdale. And one thing that I think we've talked about in the past that would be very helpful is to sort of start to aggregate an accident data hot map. And from what I understand, the stuff that's easily obtained online is somewhat incomplete, so that we would want to have an overlay from our police department. And so I just want to note that we had talked about having some running hot map that is handy for all of us as we do these meetings. So when someone comes in and said, there was an accident here, we can immediately look and say that, that this is unfortunate, we should look into it, but this seems to be not the worst intersection in Burlingame, or actually look at the hot map and say, geez, that's like the fourth one in a couple of years. We better really focus our energy and our resources on it. But that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I forget, because we did discuss it in the pre-agenda meeting, Sergeant Perna, that was one of the things that we were sort of talking about, is maybe moving forward so that things like this are brought to our attention. If we have like a quarterly map of Burlingame and maybe, blue dots where there have been many car versus car, maybe yellow dots where there's pedestrian versus car, and another color coded for bike versus car. It would be helpful for us. I think we're pretty good at looking at the data and sort of remembering which are troublesome intersections, but having the data laid out in like a GIS type format would be super helpful. So that might be something for 2021 that we could maybe start working on having. And then as regards the specific problem that we're discussing now, Mr. Wong, couldn't we just put the vertical bollards up without an elevated raised ridge, like we have in other parts of the city? Had you guys felt that wouldn't work, or?
And no, I'm sorry, through the chair, that's the starting point, right? We can start there, right? That's a lot easier than trying to get one of these, those delineators. We can put that in and then maybe just get a small piece, as we indicated right here, that little bit. If we need to extend, also, I'd like to quickly go back and point out that
Mr. Wong.
Be able to extend that as far as, because conveniently for most, there's a Caltrain driveway to the Caltrain parking lot. So we'll have to play with that a little bit. And that's why we're, we'll see what we can do. But again, having that verticality is important. We don't necessarily need that bump, but we can play with it. We try this. If it doesn't work, next step could be having that raised bump and having it more visible, right? You've got yellow on top of yellow, so.
Okay, the reason I bring that up is, that makes sense to me, is to, start out with something that we can put up more quickly and is less expensive to maintain. And if it works beautifully, then awesome, our job is done. This sort of reminds me of that jog that Hillside Drive makes where Hillside Circle is, and they've got the, what are those called again? The big dome-shaped bumps.
Yeah,
They're named after the engineer who
those
developed.
are on pavement markers on steroids. Those aren't, yeah, you don't see those everywhere.
Right. I mean, I think they're kind of phasing them out. I was reading some
Yes.
articles about that, but anyway, you know, that is very effective in that turn there, I think, and that doesn't even have the verticality. But anyway, I think I'm in favor of this for sure. And if we find that these elevated or vertical bollards are getting mashed and run over all the time, then I say, you know, then we go ahead and put something like the cement elevated bump and paint that yellow and just take it step by step until we can get responsible driving. So do we need to make a motion?
No, staff was just wanted to get feedback from the community on this. Some good points were made. We appreciate it. And yeah, we'll continue because yeah, this is something we can implement. We're not taking it to council per se. We're gonna install the improvements at some point. So we'll try to work and schedule that and see how we can get this done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think it's great that we're doing this. And you know, I was fortunate to be invited by Emily Beach prior to COVID, like literally 4 weeks before COVID. We went to a Vision Zero conference where the people from around the world were showing how you can do easy fixes like this that aren't super expensive and don't require construction and can really make intersections much safer with small investments. So I think this is like a great first step. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is 6E, Chair and Vice Chair nominations. I have had the honor of my first time being chair, also being the first time that we had COVID and had to go to all virtual meetings. And it's been, the learning curve was steep, but I think we all were pretty flexible and did pretty well. So
Through the chair?
turn it over.
Through chair, I can go ahead and just set the table and then the rest is up to you guys. Based on the rotation basis we have, Commissioner Wetton, or sorry, Vice Chair Wetton is in line for the chair position, and then Commissioner Martos would be is on deck for the vice chair. So you guys can do however, because I know it's changed, and we've had some folks decline previously, and it got a little messed up, but that's the order as it is now.
All right.
Andy, I hope you're not saying it got a little messed up because 2 people declined and I ended up being chair on 10 minutes notice, which is what happened the last time I was chair.
We just had some unusual. I mean, Commissioner Bush was vice chair twice before he became. I mean, it's just how it happened. That's all.
So, if people don't mind, I'd like to do it one more time. I think this may be my. I don't want to make any premature announcements, but this is like my third, and I had like 3+ terms. This is my third term, so I'd like to do it before this term is over. I don't know if there'll be another term, and obviously I'm up anyhow, but which is not a great campaign slogan. But I'd like to do it one more time if you guys will have me, and maybe go out on a high note. So I'm going to put my hat in the ring, and we can go from there. I hope I'm fortunate enough to have Commissioner Martos there with me, taking his turn as well.
Or I could just say 3 more years, 3 more years. But just kidding, just kidding. Commissioner Martos, are you willing to take the cloak of vice chairmanship?
I would. I'd be honored to serve as vice chair.
Awesome.
Can I make a motion? I motion that we have Vice Chair Wetton as chair next year, and Commissioner Martos as vice chair.
I will second.
Awesome. Can we have the vote through roll call?
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Bush,
Aye.
Commissioner Martos,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wetson,
Aye.
Chair Israelit.
Yes, for sure. Aye. Excellent.
So with that, Chair Israelit, you have to hand me the gavel.
It's actually
That is correct. That is, wow. Wow.
So I was, when I had to fill in for Chair Israelit, I was looking for this because my daughter had to go as Ruth Bader Ginsburg for school, and she had this, and I had just seen it around the house. I'm like, oh, I should go get this. It's plastic for everyone who's getting this work. And I couldn't find it. I was so frustrated. I chaired the meeting and couldn't find it, but I did track it down. So now, at least while we're still stuck in this sorry state, that we'll have an actual gavel for our meetings.
He finds it as he becomes chair.
What's that?
Conveniently, he finds it as he becomes chair.
I've already been using it because I also chair the bond oversight committee, so I already have gotten it out. But as the advice for whoever succeeds me, it'll happen soon. It'll be in a year. It goes by fast. Whoever succeeds me, I always say, once you've chaired a committee, you don't know if you'll ever get to use a gavel again, right? It's kind of an odd thing in an individual's life. So my advice to all chairs, and Chair Israelit can attest, I gave her this advice as Chair Bush, is use the gavel. You're not going to get to.
Unfortunately, during COVID, the only gavel I had was a meat tenderizer, and it would really be hell on the table. So
yeah, you had only like 2 months, which is too bad. We've all missed out on a lot of things, and I do hope, I really do hope that I get to chair this commission in person this year, and this isn't just a virtual chairmanship for the duration. So let's all hope for that.
We all hope with you.
Yeah.
Great. Well, now that you guys are saddled with these responsibilities, we can move on. So congratulations to both of you. And then, so we're moving now to item number 7, information items, the engineering division reports. I think we're going to talk about parklets and other fascinating things.
Thank you, Chair Israelit. Yes, the engineering report, Broadway and Burlingame Avenue parklet update. On Monday, the council approved letting Broadway have parklets. I think a month ago, we did away with the street closure, but they had needed, because of the changing times, they wanted to have parklets. So that has been approved by council. We will be, actually staff has already been out there starting to mark out and talk with the businesses. And I think we've got probably, I think the last count was about 11 of the businesses are going to participate in that program. The council also extended, just because a lot of the businesses were asking how long they can have these parklets. And the parklets program will be extended until Labor Day of next year. So at a minimum, that's how far we can go. Potentially, as we've seen, it could go longer, but that's the date they have at the earliest end date. So council provide that information to them. So we will be marking them out there. This next item is the El Camino Real renewal update. Again, this is the trying to,
Can I ask a question before we move on?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Can you refresh my memory? Was it that the Broadway businesses originally did not want parklets and they preferred street closure, or was it that I forget, did we not want to do parklets because we thought it'd be a big parking mess? Can you remind me?
No, I mean, we provide that information, like what the potential parking loss would be, but I think they preferred to have the closure because it supported their businesses. The service and retail businesses, it supported them during the week not having a closure, and then the closure helped because it was on the weekends where the restaurant business was higher. So, but okay. Now times have changed and they're in need of anything to keep stuff going. So
they need a lifeline. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. The El Camino Real Renewal project. You know, this is the one where we're talking about redoing El Camino Real, and you've seen the vision that Caltrans has proposed, or at least brought some options. Just want to give you an update because council approved the, sorry, I got to read back through which day it was because they did different. We got another 2.2 million they were going to apply towards purchasing credits from PG&E. So these credits are Rule 20A. These are funds that PG&E sets aside to do undergrounding of utilities. And so with this, the underground utilities is estimated to cost between 25 and 30 million. So what the city has already done by purchasing these credits from other agencies at a discount, they've acquired more than half of that. They've acquired 18 million worth. And I think that's what we're going to hold because potentially a city can do other options to bridge the whatever the final total is. But so that's a huge thing because the city is basically paid wasn't not even that. Sorry, my math is off at this time, but a third, 30 cents on the dollar, they've purchased the credits for. So they've maximized city funds very well. So we're at that. So just giving you an updates, but that's it's still a fraction. That 25 to 30 million is only for the undergrounding portion. The entire El Camino Real project itself, the number's not been finalized or even the costs estimated quite yet, but yeah, this is only a portion of it. I'll leave it at that. Lion Hope traffic calming improvements. The contractor about a month ago was selected, council approved, and now we're underway. If you've been out there, and maybe Commissioner Martos, Commissioner Bush, and former Commissioner Wander could attest, the streets have been painted up pretty well. You can see where things might be, where staff's going through and just double checking it right now, that's where we want, tweaking it. So they may start before the year is out, but we anticipate most of the work being done in the new year. So that's where we're at with that. And the good news is the bike ped master plan. Again, thank you to Vice Chair Wetton, but council approved that on Monday night as well. So a lot of things. This commission's work now begins. We've always preached in that when we go after these grants, that it would be nice if we had that. We can pick out something and then say it's supported, it's been vetted through this process. And now we have that. And again, we took it for a ride early on. We jumped the gun a little bit and said, it was in our almost to be approved bike ped master plan. And that's how we got some of the funding. And I see Vice Chair Wetton has a question on this one.
Actually, so I have a comment on this, but I do want to ask a quick question about the ECR point, not specifically about the undergrounding, although I would note that a number of people who were on the ECR task force with former Commissioner Launder and myself were very supportive of it. So I think it was seen as very good news. But I would ask about the ECR. I know that they are taking comments online right now for the project. And it is very critical, I think, if anyone who cares about the look and feel of Burlingame and how our El Camino Real is laid out, and if you want a future where we have the historics at Eucalyptus Groves, to comment on that. And Mr. Wong, do you happen to know when public comment on that is closing? Because I think it's been open a while. I think it is coming to a close soon.
I'm sorry, I do not know.
Okay.
I think Vice Chair Wetton, it is going to be open for a total of 4 weeks, I believe, and I think it opened up about 2 weeks ago, but I can't remember the exact date. But we have 30,000 people that live in Burlingame. Is that correct? About
a little over 30, yeah.
And last time only 200 people participated. So, as you said, if you care about, how we are different than the industrial commercial districts to the north and south of us, and you want to still feel like a neighborhood, you need to take the step to put make your voice heard and put input into this easy to take
Yes.
survey. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. If you're within the sound of our voice, do it soon. I don't know the exact deadline, but it is soon. Please do it soon. And there is a range of possibilities here, a range of outcomes, right? So the degree of change and what comes after the replacement trees, all that is in play. And, you know, look, some of these trees will come down over time for a variety of reasons that are unavoidable. But, you know, one thing that's a variable is what goes in to replace them. You know, will we try and replace the existing eucalyptus grove with a eucalyptus grove of the future, or will we, you know, as Chair Israelit notes, you know, will we let it go and look more like what's to the north and south? And I think it's important that people weigh in and make sure, if they care about it, and make sure that's known. So.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Chair. I did have a comment on the bike ped, which is only to say it really is one of the most thoughtful documents I've ever seen about transportation in this city. It is incredibly, I mean, it's obviously huge, but it's incredibly detailed and incredibly thoughtful. It's not just volume, it's really thoughtful. And they gathered a ton of feedback. There's no way to sort of assert what people want. That, you know, they took a careful survey and they got a lot of good data. And you can disagree with the majority on some points, which we all will in one place or another, but they went out and they got a lot of feedback and they thought a lot about the problems. And I thought that they thought really well about how to prioritize things. I really like that. So I just I praised it at the city council meeting. I wanted to praise it again here, and everybody, the five of us, should definitely, although it's quite an assignment, we should read it. It's adopted, and it is agree or disagree in different areas. It's going to be an important document for our city and how we operate going forward. And it's going to be incredibly important to get grants. And also, you know, we hear this every year from certain members of the community, you know, when we're restriping, like, well, we're restriping, why don't we do X, Y, and Z? Well, now we have a bike master plan, so that we have something we should be looking to when we do these restripes, and it's thought through. So I think we can say we're not missing any opportunities as we go forward. So I just wanted to say, I really think I've been doing this for 10 years, and it sort of happened in the background for us. It came back to us once, but it's a really important thing that happened in our world.
Thank you. And then let's hear from Commissioner Lee and then Commissioner Martos. I see your blue hand too.
Hi, I wasn't sure, is this the proper time to make comments on the different engineering informational items? Is this the right time? Yes?
Anything that Mr. Wong has talked about, if you have questions or comments, yes.
Okay, so first I wanted to know if anyone here or Mr. Wong, who knows the website exactly for the El Camino Real project. I believe it does close December 17th, and I haven't put in my comments. That was one question. The other was, does Mr. Wong know if the sidewalks on the west side of El Camino Real, if they're going to be installed? One is the block that belongs to Hillsborough between Floribunda and Bellevue, I'm guessing. And then there's one block at the north end of El Camino Real, the north end of Burlingame, before you get to the hospital. A block is missing of sidewalk. I was wondering if that's definitely on the plan. That's my other question. And then the last thing was Lion Hope traffic calming. I see the items that are bullet pointed here on our information items. What I don't see is if the city is going ahead with removing 6 stop signs in the Lion Hope neighborhood that BPAC wasn't aware of, and the women running the Lion Hope neighborhood weren't aware that there was going to be any removal of stop signs in their neighborhood. In fact, they had requested additional stop signs that were not put on the plan. One particular being Plymouth and Bloomfield, which does qualify, I believe, as a school crossing. And that was also slated originally to have the 2 stop signs that are there removed. So so it's website, sidewalk in El Camino Real, and the stop sign issues still in Lion Hope. Those were my 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So while you were speaking, I was able to get the website pulled up, and it's ECR, El Camino Real, ECRalternatives.com. And it is going to be up. It went up on November 17th and it will close December 17th. So you only have 1 week to go ahead and enter your comments. And you can choose what you want to. You can do all or none of it. You know, you can talk about trees, you can talk about buried utilities, you can talk about the different parts, so you don't have to go on and do the entire thing, but you should make your voice heard. And Commissioner Martos, would you like to speak?
Yeah, so my audio and video got interrupted. That website was ECR. Give it to me again, Chair, please.
ECRalternatives.com.
Okay. So no, I was going to suggest that Mr. Wong get that in the e-news again, but it sounds like there's not enough time for that. So that was my only comment.
Oh, sorry. If any of you are in on Nextdoor, this might be an opportunity to post something to your neighborhood, because it is, you know, a timely issue, and that's one way to get the word out. So I did last time, so if anyone else wants to do it this time, so it doesn't sound like I'm a Lorax speaking for the trees and other people also are interested, that'd be fabulous. Vice Chair Wetton, did you also want to speak again?
Only to say that I had put the website in the chat. But someone beat me to it. So you beat me to it, Chair.
Oh, well, that's the job, right? All right, thank you. So
Sorry.
now,
I'm sorry, I hadn't finished the.
Oh my gosh.
No problem.
Sorry.
Through the chair, though, I will get for Commissioner Lee's comments. We'll get back to you because some of that is changing. That some of those stops are not being removed because I think we were at traffic circles. Not to get into discussion, but they were at traffic circles, and we were going to go to all yield, and that's no longer. That's something else we'll look at in the future. But for this initial stage, we'll keep the stop signs on the side streets, and then specifically like at Howard, we'll keep the through traffic. For our reasoning behind that, we may eventually move to all stops, but we're not going to remove any stops at those. As far as the sidewalks on the El Camino, that you'll have to look at the document because I don't even think it's at that level yet. They're just merely talking generalities, but please make your comments on that. The last thing on the bike ped master plan, I'd just like to point out Mr. Sy in Alta, Michael Sy, he was huge on it because he was up late nights on some of those, just getting input, especially trying to get these last week or so, getting those in there because what we were originally sent was, you know, kind of the draft, and it was rough, and he worked hard with Alta and then got it to where it's at. So he deserves, you know, most, if not all, the credit from a staff side. So unfortunately, he's not here tonight, but next time you guys see him, yeah, just give him a pat on the back, gloves on, sanitize hands. But yes, it's due to him. So moving on, Hoover School update. I just slipped on it. I should have let you know earlier, but the August 17th meeting, council awarded for the 2020 resurfacing project. And that's key because Easton was in there, that paved area that we have. So that is part of it. That will be done as part of that whenever that project starts off, and it won't start off for a while. It won't happen until spring, I believe. I might get corrected on that, but it's a little too cool right now to be working on asphalt. So thanks to the commissioners. That's a big step. I think the Hoover parents, Hoover folks up there will appreciate that. That's something we heard about when we went to the PTA. We've had the discussion. We couldn't do sidewalks up there. but if we could fix that path, so that's what's happening with this. So
Yeah.
that's
Just quick question, that repave also covers, I believe it's Summit going up to Hillside Circle, right?
no, that's different. We've got grant funding for that, and
Okay.
they programmed it for next year as well. So there's going to
Okay.
be quite a bit happening, and the goal is to avoid. It will be done during the summer, or depending on the extent. Well, right now, great time to do it. Right, we can knock it out, no school worries. But yes, it's to avoid school traffic.
Great.
The federal resurfacing project, these are done with federal funds. So we had 2 resurfacing projects done, our typical one that we do on an annual basis, and we got some extra to do certain streets. Broadway on there, we've been out there, Broadway's been paved, and striping work should be being wrapped up. So
I just saw that yesterday. I happened to go to Broadway and I noticed everything looked really
and
good.
another reason why
Yeah.
we didn't do parklets on there initially, because I believe Mr. Kavarian indicated that they put up parklets and we'd have to pull them up to resurface. So the timing of this occurs that they can put these down now and not have to worry about picking them up until September. And last, if you haven't been out there, Burlingame Point was accepted by the City Council on Monday. If you've been out there, haven't been out there, the roads are open. Although the signals we've left in flashing red, just so folks don't get used to speeding through there and doing that. So right now there's no pedestrians out there per se, except for the contractor, but that's active. And with that, I believe there's a hand raised, but that ends the engineer's report. And I believe, back to you, Chair, but Commissioner Lee has her hand up.
She has her blue hand up and her live hand up.
Oh. Hi, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to talk about the Hoover School update briefly. If you could let me know, because I'm looking at the police report of the collisions that occurred. And one of them is at a pedestrian was hit, driver error at Hillside Drive and Alvarado Avenue, which is right there by Hoover School. So, and it's a really odd intersection up by Hoover School, but a lot of the kids who need to walk downhill, that's the way they have to walk. So I'm wondering, are we going to be looking at this area to try to improve the engineering for walking and biking for the school children while we're doing the Hoover School update resurfacing area? Will it be the whole area, or what are we going to be doing? It'd be nice to improve it while we're doing some repaving. Particularly that intersection, obviously, that just had a hit.
Not again, this is an update area, not a discussion area, but I would like to point out that as part of this commission, and this is before your time, that intersection is now always stop control. That the commission as well as City Council, they made the recommendation to City Council to do that. So, yeah, I mean, it's driver error, but it is all way. We have high visibility crosswalks all along there as well, and even when we just resurface, those crosswalks were all refreshed. So I guess that ends the engineer's report. So back to Chair Israel.
And I'm so sorry for cutting you off earlier. I kind of got lost. So thank you very much, Mr. Wong. And then we'll move to item 7B. Sergeant Perna has provided us with the traffic and incident update. So I turn it over to you, Sergeant Perna.
Sorry, I was trying to get my video going. Is it, I'm not getting my screen. Is the video up?
Sorry, yes, we see you.
There it is. Okay, I see it. Sorry, I was having a problem with the full screen mode. Okay, thank you, everyone. Just a couple of things. One thing, Mr. Wong, I don't know if you mentioned the free parking on Saturdays that was approved by the council on Monday. So there's going to be 4 Saturdays with free parking beginning this Saturday in the downtown, Burlingame downtown and Broadway downtown. So just for anyone that's might be listening, wanted to make sure that that gets noted, that it's only for, as of right now, it's only for 4 weeks. I know we had an issue with residents and citizens complaining that they didn't receive sufficient notice that the shelter in place, the free parking in the shelter in place had ended, and they were none too pleased to have to pay for parking again or receive citations. So regarding the collision that Commissioner Lee just mentioned, I was just looking at that. There's really not much else that could have been done. This was a pedestrian, I believe, in the crosswalk, and the vehicle just, for whatever reason, just didn't, wasn't paying enough attention or didn't see the pedestrian while they were like 3/4 of the way through the intersection. So speed wasn't a factor. I think it was just a straight failure to yield to a pedestrian who had the right of way. But that's not to say that there couldn't be some engineering improvements, but I just wanted you to know the facts of the collision.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I walk up there a bit. I mean, one interesting thing about that intersection, we did put the stops in, but the crosswalk, as with a lot of them, there's a crosswalk on one side and not the other side. So if you cross closer to the hill, there's no crosswalk there. And obviously a car should be stopping anyway. The pedestrian should be not just wandering out if cars are coming through and there's stop signs. So it should, in theory, it still should work out, but there isn't an actual formal crosswalk there where a car would have to stop as soon as you put your foot in the street. So it's just worth noting.
So this was actually, the pedestrian was crossing hillside, and I believe there is a crosswalk there. Is there not? Because if not, I need to.
The crosswalk is there's a crosswalk across Alvarado if you're going to the stairs on that side. There's a crosswalk, but I don't think there is a crosswalk. And there's a crosswalk up the hill, right? So where the island is with the stones, there's a crosswalk that goes to Hillside Circle. But I don't think if you're just walking and you sort of naturally are crossing where you want to move down Hillside on the north side of Hillside, I don't think there is a crosswalk there. I noticed that when I was up there walking a couple of weeks ago. I guess there's Google Maps, so if I'm remembering this wrong, we can always.
Sorry, I was
I found it, but the recent Google one, most recent one wasn't very clear, but it was sharp, I'll say.
Yeah, according to Google Earth, the intersection I'm speaking of, which is just crossing Hillside, has a yellow piano key type crosswalk. And that's the crosswalk that the pedestrian was in.
Maybe I'll let maybe you can point out, but I'm going to share screen and show everyone the
Great.
But to clarify, the person was not hit because they were crossing where there was no crosswalk. They were actually in a crosswalk.
That's what I'm saying. They were like 3/4 of the way across the street. Yeah, the pedestrian had the right of way, and it's just.
Yeah. So this wasn't a matter of poorly marked crosswalk or anything like this. This was driver error completely.
From what I could tell, yes. So this is the one. It's the one over.
So you can see it if you go into the satellite and you zoom down. You can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, you're there. If you zoom in, I don't know who's got control of the screen. So that's that looks like the crosswalk to Hillside Circle where you're putting the hand.
Right. This is Hillside Circle.
Right. And if you go down, kind of go, a little further. Is this where the collision was, Sergeant Perner, or is it further down?
No, this was at Hillside Drive.
Yeah. So there you go, Andy. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, there's a tree obscuring it. I have a different view, but those crosswalks are there. But the crosswalk, the one that would be exactly. Thank you. You're reading my mind. That's great. Thank you, Mr. Wong. That crosswalk doesn't exist. And so if you're walking down Hillside and you don't want to go to the south side of Hillside Avenue. You want to be on the north side of Hillside Avenue.
That's correct.
You'll probably, just human behavior, you'll probably cross where there is no crosswalk in that spot. And so in walking there recently, I did notice that's a little bit of an exposure. You know, the other crosswalk, unless you plan on being on the other side of Hillside, you're not going to use it. And it's also less risky. I mean, there's not a lot of through traffic on that other crosswalk that exists. So just pointing out, I mean, we can talk about it in the future, but since there was an accident, I think this sort of after action look at things, I think is useful. Sorry,
No problem. I was looking at my notes. Is there did anyone have, so there was 15 collisions documented for we're looking at November data, but there was 15 accidents documented there. And it looks like, why did I highlight the 3 of these? Oh, because these were the ones that involved either pedestrians and or bicycles. But if you look, there actually was an increase in this period of injury accidents. There was quite a few injury accidents. If you look, there's 1, 2, 3. It looks like there was like 10 or 12 minor injury accidents. So that just means that someone had at least at minimum a complaint of pain while we were investigating the collision.
Through the chair, I mean, I think you highlighted Sergeant Perna, an accident at California and Grove. I think that would be an interesting one to hear about. There were a couple injuries there.
Yeah, 3, 4.
Yeah, because we're talking about working on that intersection specifically to make it more safe. So Sergeant Perna, could you give us the details of what happened at that intersection, please?
Of course. So again, this was a driver was driving northbound on California, attempted to make a left turn onto Grove. There were 2 pedestrians walking northbound on California on the west sidewalk. They were crossing Grove. They were again in the marked crosswalk, approximately half the way across the street when they were struck by the vehicle.
And it's worth noting, I think it was almost 6 o'clock, right? So this time of year is dark.
Yes, correct.
But I believe that intersection is pretty well lit.
You know, honestly, at Grove, I'm not sure about the lighting conditions, to be perfectly honest. Some of those intersections, I think each one, they're sort of lit differently. Some of them are dark, some of them are not. I'm not exactly sure about Grove at nighttime. Again, this was a failure to yield to the pedestrian who obviously had the right of way. One patient was transported, one was not for injuries. I don't know if there was a follow-up to this yet, but it was the injuries. The party that was transported were like complaint of pain in nature. No known at the time serious injuries.
The lighting of the intersections on California a lot of them is not great. Mr. Wong knows I've been complaining about this for like 10 years. And the other thing is, if you're a northbound California driver, you're probably just struggling and using all your brain power to figure out which left turn to make and not make the wrong left turn or miss your left turn. And you may not be thinking about people. I'm always looking for that garage. There's it's like a very distinctive garage door that you see when you turn on Grove, and that's all I'm looking for. So it's easy to see how a driver might not see some people, especially at night.
So just while we're on the topic of this collision, the motorist said that did state that the pedestrians were wearing dark clothing and that the intersection was not well lit. So that's what they said in the driver's statement.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I had thought we were talking about Oak Grove. I just was confused. And
I'm sorry. This was a pedestrian accident at California and Grove.
Okay,
Yeah.
And then Commissioner Lee, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. First, I wanted to go back. Perhaps I wanted to go back to our first pedestrian injury at Alvarado and Hillside. Would we be able to send someone from staff over to look at the intersection and see if there are any changes we want to make, whether it's crosswalks that Commissioner Wetton suggested, or any other paint that could be done while we're up there paving, to try to improve that area for the pedestrians. And then pertaining to Grove and California Drive, these aren't accidents, these are collisions. So it's not an accident when you drive into not one, but two people. So this driver wasn't paying attention well enough or going slow enough. If they didn't have a clear view of where they were going, they should be crawling at that point. But it just kind of, for us going forward in the future, when paving programs come up with the city, we have to remember that even though you might consider the crosswalk at Grove, to be minor importance, it wouldn't be on my high visibility crosswalk radar at all. But then you see how even on this small spot, two people got hit. And so we maybe need to be more conscious of adding even more high visibility crosswalks. They are white. I mean, they're much brighter than the two little matchsticks, if this even had a painted crosswalk at all, any kind of crosswalk. But anyway, normally I'd say, you wouldn't want one there, but two people just got hit. So we should just keep it in mind when we go forward with improvements in the town. Thank you.
Were there any other questions about do you want me to elaborate on any other collisions? Oh, just to elaborate on what you had mentioned earlier, I did listen and receive your feedback regarding the GIS hotspot map. I need to look at I need to look at how we would do that. So that just might take a little time, but I'm sure there's a solution out there, and we'll work on it, and we'll figure out a way to get it going and get it up. I think an easy way to do it, once we figure out a solution, would be to begin plotting it, and then figure out a way to do historical data too, because one of the issues is that some of the roadways have experienced changes, so it's difficult to plot collisions on the map if there's been significant changes to the roadway. Like an example of that would be like the roundabout area. I'm trying to think about what other areas of that. Oh, like airport, that area over there. There's been some significant changes. So I mean, we could actually do this like maybe even in sections. That might be better, like a Lion Hogue one, that type of a thing, or like a Mills Estate one, or I don't know, something like that might be better, just so that it's not so much data on one small. How like even this report has a lot of data. It's very small. Just something that would I don't know, be easier to navigate and read, but I'm sure there's a solution. So I'll definitely start looking into that and working on it. I think it's a good idea.
At the risk of opening up a can of worms, I think it'd be useful, since we're talking about it, maybe we all have different perspectives, for all of us to sort of just say what we think would be the most useful. And unfortunately, we may not all say the same thing, which will complicate things, but I'll just share what I think would be the best tool, which is one map of Burlingame, one set of dots for incidents. Whether I to your point, I think trying to do too much will make it like almost impossible, and it might actually be harder to use. So for me, it's like simplicity is better. And if I had a map of Burlingame and I had, I saw, by the way, on the collision report, an ECR Rosedale collision, which is like, I have a feeling maybe it's like a big, if the dot gets bigger, the more incidents there have been, and there's a look back date. Maybe it's
so like almost like a heat map, like a little heat.
Yeah. And maybe the look back is 2 years, 3 years more. I don't know. We can decide what that is, but there's a look back date. This is the last 3 years. And, there'd probably be like a giant circle for Ray Rosedale, right? And there'd be my block in Hillsdale, there might be just a dot, right? Maybe there's one incident or zero incidents. And you'd look around the city, and when people come in and say, geez, I'm really upset about this particular intersection, we'd have it handy and we'd say, okay, comparatively, this intersection hasn't done nearly as badly as others. So in terms of our focus, or they come in and say, oh gosh, this intersection, and we look and it's like big dot. And we're like, yeah, we got to really zero in on this. There's been like 5 or 6 or 7 accidents here. Like, we should prioritize and like get it on the agenda and like get out there and look at it or whatever. And I think that would be the tool for me. Like, we can always, once we know an intersection's problematic, we can drill down and say, what was a vehicle pedestrian, vehicle bike, bike pedestrian, vehicle object? We had the one that bike, whatever. Like, we can drill down and figure out what it is. But just the initial pass of, these are the intersections that I should be worried about, and I actually should bother to walk through and look around and think about, because there's been multiple accidents here in the past few years. That, from one commissioner's perspective, would be the most useful tool. And I would love to have that handy anytime we're in a meeting, because we can't control who comes in and public comments and speaks on something, or something will come up that no one really anticipated, and we just want to go and look at that. So that, again, one commissioner's perspective, that's mine. That would be the most useful tool from my perspective. And I'd invite the other commissioners to agree or disagree and share what they think would be the most helpful to them for the work we do here.
Thank you. So we had discussed this at our pre-agenda meeting, and I think that the spreadsheet you give us every month, Sergeant Perna, is great because it's very granular. So we're not going to miss something, kind of like what Commissioner Lee was saying. Well, you might not think Grove in California is a big deal, but well, it was, to those 2 people.
Right.
But I think what we were also talking about, Vice Chair Wetton and I, is having something that's more of an amalgam, a conglomeration of the data, so we wouldn't overlook a hotspot, or at least be more aware of them. So that is my input. I'm sorry to bring my dog onto the Zoom call, but he just had surgery today. So it's Commissioner Lee, you have your hand raised, and then we'll go to Commissioner Bush and Commissioner Martos as well.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that for the BPAC, for the bicycle pedestrian plan, the consultants Alta have a heat map already of all of Burlingame with the pedestrian and bike collisions. I don't know if there's vehicle hitting vehicle, but we already have that. If we could just get it from Alta, they've got it, and it was part of our study of what happened in Burlingame for the plan. So that would be current. Ask
Even
Alta.
figuring out how they're doing it might be helpful too. Like, like if I could just import our more data into it, that would be great. So
yeah. So ask Otto at Alta, how, for it.
Commissioner Lee, I thought that was like slightly outdated. I thought that's why, I may be wrong, but I thought that it wasn't as fresh as we were looking for. But
well,
correct me if I'm wrong.
Mr. Wong would know for sure, but I believe it's through 2018. But you will see the patterns start to emerge. Even though it's 2018, you'll see that like Howard Avenue and wherever that, Lorton, where the people have to cross to get to the new parking lot, that's one of our top pedestrian intersection hits right there, right where all those people going to our new parking garage are. So you'll start to see that there are patterns to intersections, crossing Burlingame Avenue at the train station, that's a bad one. So you'll see the pattern. So even though it's 2018, that's not really outdated because it's 5 years of information on there, or you can go more, but you can really see the hot spots. Thank you.
Well, also, what I was saying is just that they may have a very easy solution to how they're doing it. So just figuring out how they're doing it, how they're importing the data, like what program they're using even, it might be very easy. So, I could very easily update that information and keep it updated, and maybe even have some sort of filter so that we could be looking at different things so it could kind of suit everyone's needs. But I'll definitely get working on that and try to figure out a usable solution. And if it initially, if it needs to be simple, as a Vice Chair Wetton has suggested, we'll do that. We'll start, like I said, we'll get it. I think it'd be a useful tool, so we'll definitely work on it.
Bush, would you like to speak?
Yes. I guess I was also thinking about another resource, which is the Crime Graphics website that the Burlingame Police Department already has populated. I think it has like traffic collisions already and has the heat map capabilities. I think that we would probably just need to have an additional flag for bicycle and pedestrian that you could filter on. But I think that it already has a lot of the capabilities that Vice Chair or Chair-elect Wetton has proposed.
So there's some problems with that, just so you're aware. Like it doesn't it lists the initial call location, not necessarily the collision location, and it there's some other, we looked at using that in the past, but that's another option that we could look at is maybe even just whatever the back end of that is pointing at, like point it to a different spreadsheet, like point it to like the spreadsheet that I make, and then that way that would give us that would be ideal, because then you could look at the same spreadsheets that I've been providing, but on a map, and you'd be able to sort it and stuff. So I'm sure, like I said, I know that there's a way. We just have to figure it out, and I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Let me just say for the record, you may not want to call me chair-elect yet until all the lawsuits are resolved. I believe the state of Texas and Rudy Giuliani still have some outstanding actions questioning what happened earlier this evening. So hold off. Let's see what happens next month when we all show up. See if I'm allowed to take the gavel.
Vice Chair-elect Martos, did you want to speak? Do you have any questions before we move on?
I did, yeah, through the chair, Sergeant Perna. So I think I asked for this a couple of months back, but when do you think we might be able to have a draft of this new heat map?
I don't know. Again, like I said, I could tell you that we could work on it. One of the things that you guys had asked for in the past was just like a master database, like a spreadsheet that had everything. Like that's something that can be done quickly. I can't remember if I actually ended up doing that and providing that or not. I think maybe that was right around the time that COVID hit and things priorities shifted. But I don't know. I can't speak to a time. I mean, I'll begin working on that, sort of immediately, but I just don't know how long it would take to get, by the next meeting would be great, but I don't know if that's feasible or not. I'll tell you that my goal will be to have something for you by the next meeting.
That would be great. Put some of your cadets on it. Get lots of free time.
Well, I'm definitely going to seek out. I mean, believe me, I'll if it's a matter of populating data, then yeah, I'll definitely get that done. But I think that it's just a matter of reaching out to the maker of our program. Might be a problem just because of the time that we're in, but it's called Sunridge, so just dealing with that. And but there's also there could be temporary solutions too, where Google Maps and stuff like that has some overlays and very easy ways to plot things. So even if I had to do something sort of temporary, you might be able to do that as well while I look for a more permanent solution. So yeah, I think that it's reasonable that I could have something with some data on it by the next meeting.
That'd be great. We appreciate the time you'll have to put into it and the thought you've already put in. So really appreciate it, Sergeant Perna. We realize there's other things going on in the city these days, but I would I'd reiterate, simple and faster, I think, is my preference.
I agree.
Because we can always drill down. We can always go back and drill down once we see that there's an intersection that seems problematic.
And we do appreciate that it's extra work and that it's a new project. So just so you know, we do appreciate that. But I think it would be really helpful. Okay. Then moving on, I'm sorry, are there any other raised hands before I do move on? No. Okay, so then moving on, we don't have farmers market. Are there any direct communications with any of the commissioners from the public that we need to discuss? I did not receive any. Commissioner Martos. You're up.
Through the chair, where's Mr. Wong? Mr. Wong, I had a question from a person who lives off of Oak Grove between Paloma and Acacia. And he said they have one of these pedestrian paddles or these things in the crosswalks to alert drivers, slow down. And I believe it is on the, let's see, if you're going on Oak Grove East, I believe it's on the western side of the crosswalk. And he asked me a question of whether it should be on the other side of the crosswalk. I told him that it's likely visible from both directions, whether it's on the one side of the crosswalk or the other, may be an indication of the heaviest direction of traffic flow and likely closer to the traffic in the direction that it flows, so that it's to alert the drivers of the crosswalk. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I was kind of making stuff up, but he was trying to convince me it should be on the other side. Now that artery there, Oak Grove, it's a crossing from McKinley. It's a crossing, he said it gets pretty heavy with traffic when VHS is in session. A lot of students in cars or parents driving students in cars down that artery. So what, when you make a determination to put one of those indicators on a crosswalk, how do you do it? How do you decide which side of the crosswalk to put it on in the direction of traffic flow?
Sure, sorry, through the chair. And Commissioner Martos, you're absolutely correct. Those signs are double-sided.
Okay.
So there's visibility on both ends. And it gets a little tough. I mean, it's almost the opposite of what we talked about earlier, because Acacia has a stop. It tees into Oak Grove. It's making that left turn. I mean, not even it's because those streets are so narrow, making that left turn, it's tighter. I don't think anyone's speeding through that, like blowing the stop sign at Acacia and trying to hang it. But if you put it on the other side of the crosswalk, it makes that turn really tight for even a box truck to make on a regular basis, not a speeding box truck. So that's how we kind of place those.
I see. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll share that with the resident that asked me that question. And then through the chair again to Sergeant Perna, I just wanted to share something with you. I sold a used vehicle, and the buying party asked where we could meet to make that transaction, and we actually made the transaction in the police department parking lot. And I wanted to compliment the staff. The officer who helped us, not only did he help us fill out the pink slip and made sure everything was done correctly, but he waited with us till the transaction occurred, and even when the buying party drove off with the vehicle to make sure everything was done properly and nothing funny was going on. So it was really a good, comfortable and secure transaction on something that I was a little concerned about, because it was a very quick transaction. I got a call and they wanted to meet me in a couple hours, and they're coming with cash, and it was a little bit uncomfortable for me, but it went very, very well to do a transaction like that right there in the police department parking lot. So I just want to compliment the staff there. And I don't know if you share that with any of your superiors, but please let them know that that's a good thing for any of those internet Craigslist transactions or other things. That went very well.
I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, there's actually a sign there. If anyone's ever been to our parking lot, it says Internet Exchange Zone. And there's, there's surveillance there. It's albeit that you did the smart thing was to make sure an officer was there. But that was very smart, and I'm glad to hear that you received good customer service. When was that? Just curious.
That was Thursday, so Sunday, what's today, the 10th? So that would have been on 6th, the 29th, November 29th,
Okay, great.
Sunday evening.
That's perfect. I'm glad to hear it. But yeah, we encourage the public to utilize that. If they ever have a question, if we could assist in, in some way, we will and we can. So that I'm glad to hear the transaction went smoothly. It's true that when people do sell vehicles, if the paperwork's not filled out, sometimes people get calls from a tow yard or something where, they're like, I sold that vehicle months ago, but they never, completed the release liability or whatnot. So I'm glad to hear that they were able to help you with that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other communications? Okay. And then I think we are at the committee and subcommittee reports, but I doubt that any of us in the past month have gotten together to work on these specific subcommittees. Correct me if I'm wrong. We do have a new commissioner, and first of all, I was derelict, and I should have introduced you and had you tell us a little bit about yourself at the beginning of the meeting. So my apologies. If you, Adrian, would like to just tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself at this point, and then we could either just assign you to the subcommittee groups where previous Commissioner Lunder was already assigned, or if you have specific interests and you want to think about it, then we can always, give you some time and talk about this next meeting.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. So glad to be the second woman on the committee. So anyway, I've been interested in transportation choices and safe transportation for children in particular for at least 20 years. My kids were born in Burlingame, but went to the Hillsborough schools. I was 4 blocks from my elementary school in Hillsborough, and I can tell you those were the toughest 4 blocks to walk I've ever walked in my life. So I got very involved in pedestrian safety, and then when my children were 10, when the American Academy of Pediatrics says they're old enough to bike on a street with an adult, I started biking with them so that they learned how to bike to school and bicycle. So I've been working at it all along. As far as I've been on BPAC the last 3 years and co-chaired it, secretary, co-chair. And then about 10 years ago, for 3 years, I was on the San Mateo County Transportation Authority Citizens Advisory Committee. And, when I went to interview, like 30 people interviewed for the one spot. When I went to interview, they said, well, you're not Hispanic, you're not poor, you're not Black, you're this wealthy woman in Hillsborough, why are you applying for this position? Like, you're not handicapped, you don't ride the bus. So like, why do you think you should be on the Transportation Authority? And it's the same thing, how I kind of feel here is that I will, and I told this to Mayor Beach, is that I will be here and I will represent the 20% of the children in our community and in our county who don't have transportation representation. So the kids can only scooter, bike, walk, whatever they can do now, rollerblade, skateboard. That's their transportation. That's their mode of being independent on their own. And we, our little Mayberry here of Burlingame, hasn't kept up with the times with the population growth and the growth of the motor vehicles and the aggressiveness of driving. So I'm here to make it easier for all of us to walk and bike, particularly children around the community, and then to keep a balance between that and the motor vehicles. And we also own a small business here in Burlingame. So representing how the small business feels also. So that's me in a nutshell. And school transportation would be great. Transportation alternatives would be fine. I don't know. Where do you need me? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, commissioners, I haven't done this before. When we sort of rejigger the subcommittees, is this just something what's the best way to do this?
Through the chair?
Yes.
Just, next month's typically the annual where we set the priorities for the commission. And so some of those subcommittees may change, right?
Okay.
They have that. So maybe we table it till next meeting. And after you guys go through that and figure out where everyone's interests are, and then assign subcommittees at that point.
Yes. One data point on the citywide transportation alternatives. We had talked with Commissioner Wander stepping down. We thought maybe we would phase that one out. I thought we would phase that one out. But I sat in on our city council meeting on Monday, and we still have at least 2 members of our city council who really, really would like us to see more in the way of shuttles. And we did take a crack at it, getting a grant. I don't know, when was it, Mr. Wong? Probably a year ago or more, where we tried to get a grant from
It might have been
do
before
shuttles.
COVID.
Yeah, I feel like I remember talking to you about it. I was sitting in my office, so it must have been pre-COVID. But I thought maybe we wouldn't continue on this one, but there's still a lot of interest from our elected officials in this. So I think maybe just that's one data point to keep in mind as we revisit this. I would say downtown parking is always a hot issue, and school traffic. I would just say I appreciate Commissioner Lee's ambition to represent our 20% of our kids who don't none of them get to be a commissioner. I hope I aspire to do that too. I hope we're all doing it, to be honest with you. But I think that's why we have a school traffic committee. And then, Broadway parking, it's a little harder because we don't know what the hell's going on until COVID's over. But, that's where we are now. I'm trying to recall if we've had other committees. BPAC used to be on this list, but we handle it now up above, and we have 2 representatives from our commission on BPAC. I had heard through the grapevine, Commissioner Lee, you plan to continue there. So maybe that's one where we can check it off. So we'll figure it out. I agree, though. We can all maybe take this as homework to think about into our priority setting session.
Let's mull it over. And then the next meeting that we do have is our, that kind of segues nicely. So the next item on the agenda is future agenda items, but I think we are doing our priority list with the, tell me the method again. It's not the Mazeroski.
It's
Novorosky.
Yeah.
So I'm from Pittsburgh, so Mazeroski, famous baseball player. So
Novorosky. We're getting pretty close to the point where Commissioner Martos, did you serve with Commissioner Novorosky? I think you did.
Yes, I did.
We may be the only 2 that has actually witnessed the Novorosky method with Commissioner Novorosky. So pretty soon we'll be calling out this method, and no one will even know why it's called this. But yeah,
we'll bring back former Commissioner Novorosky to teach everyone.
We should convince him to do it.
They'll orchestrate.
Yeah, 4 of us have lived through it though. Like, we've all seen how it works. Commissioner Lee, it's going to sound, I don't want to jump ahead, but you'll see. We'll explain it to you. It's going to sound like it couldn't possibly work, and somehow it does. And it does effectively help us set our priorities for the following year.
But Commissioner Lee, do pack a snack. It tends to be a longer meeting.
Yeah, not terrible. Not as long as you think it's going to be, given that method, but it goes faster than you could imagine.
Mr. Wong, was there anything else that you wanted to have on the agenda that you were planning on bringing back to us, or that you
Yeah, and the other item that we'll probably have on the agenda is we'll bring back the parking garage, right? Because I think later that month, council's probably gonna seek some input on that. So we can give them the option, but we can also make sure everyone feels good about it, because we'll get that polling and then you guys can make the actual motion of what it is. So
you think you will be able to get that done for
check
over
with
the
our
holidays still? And
yep, I'll check with our economic development specialist and see. We were just waiting to get some additional questions from this meeting, and so we've got that, and we'll see how we can try to put it in the poll.
Excellent.
I have one thing. I don't think it'll go. It's not January, but it's one thing that I would like Mr. Wong in particular to start thinking about. And I mentioned it before. Is I've been doing a little personal investigation around EV charging.
Mm-hmm.
Not in new building, which I know the city already has a reach code, and not on the parking garage, but existing apartment stock where it's a challenge. And I did talk to a commissioner on the planning commission about maybe we potentially do some sort of joint session on it if we feel like maybe it's not something we should do alone. I've talked to a couple other people who have some expertise in the area, in the city. And of course, this is something for Segal as well, but just for the benefit of everybody, I was listening carefully in the city council session to Segal's presentation about, we're doing things to try and get people from stopping to use gas stoves, right? And in the meantime, half of our residents live in apartment buildings where it would be very difficult to switch from a gasoline to an electric car, notwithstanding the fact that it's mandated. It's going to be mandated in 15 years, long before the housing will go down. So it's a problem I think we need to start trying to think about solving, and this is a really good time to do it. It's not going to be on the agenda next month, but I don't want to wait a whole month before you start thinking about it. Talk to Segal about it, and just thinking about what are the problems, with trying to address this. And I would argue that you can, evaluate, whether it's something where we could actually make a pretty big impact, particularly on Segal's climate goals, the city's climate goals.
Vice Chair Wetton, I think you actually just came up with a great new subcommittee that you can be on. Would work very well.
I think this is, I don't know if this is a whole subcommittee. Well, you know what, I'm already getting too far ahead of everything. I just wanted to give Mr. Wong the opportunity. I don't want to wait 4 weeks for him to start thinking about this. Something to noodle over when things are quiet between Christmas and New Year's. And just get Segal to noodle over it too, and just think about who needs to weigh in, who needs to be consulted, and how do we think about what we as a city can do, right?
And you can always put that on our priority list also.
Yes, yeah. So I will. I'll nominate it, and then we can Novoroski method it down to the bottom or to the top, depending on what happens.
Commissioner Martos, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. Did Commissioner Lee want to say something? I thought her hand was raised as well.
Sorry.
I'll let her go first. Her hand was raised first.
Okay, I didn't notice who raised
Oh,
first.
okay. All right. So am I to understand that I should be working on a priority list for us for Teaspoon?
Good question. Some of the priority list is somewhat established in that there are things that we are long-term projects, or definitely you can start to think about particular items that are of concern to you that you think we should be working on in 2021. Yeah, okay. So you don't have to come up with it doesn't have to be complete. A lot of the framework is already there, but for instance, when I was a new commissioner, I was wanted to work on the school safety thing. And so I brought that, as one of my priorities. So think about things like that maybe we've missed or we have overlooked over the past, past year or so.
Can I just, through the chair, for your benefit, Commissioner Lee, the existing list is in our minutes. So if you
Yeah.
look, so
Yeah, I saw
it's-
it, Howard.
yeah, it's at the bottom of it. Yeah, so we endeavor to not let it get too long. I think the city council has complained at times that we let it get to be too. So we try and keep it, around that number. It's not engraved in granite. It could get bigger or smaller, but we don't want it to get to like 15.
Okay, and my other question was, like, this agenda didn't seem like it was that difficult, or, nothing major went on in this agenda, but we're at 2.5 hours. Is this what I should normally schedule, the amount of time for the meetings, just out of curiosity?
That's a
Is this
good
about right?
question.
It seems long, because didn't seem like that much to do on the agenda.
Yes, I think you are correct. This past year is my first time as a chair, and I did really try to sort of like move us along and keep it, to the point. And that's something that we still need to work on, I think. Sometimes when there's public comment, especially something pretty controversial or dicey, it can even be longer, obviously. But I think, as a group of commissioners, I think we're going to try and, we'll continue to try to, shorten the meetings and make them more efficient. But this is about average.
Okay. Through the chair, I probably am not going to be as good at that as you are, Commissioner Israel. I think you're better at it than I am. But I would say just the range of outcomes is we have meetings that can go fast and we're out of it by 8:30, and we have meetings go past 11. I think this is probably average tonight. So,
But that would be really, out here.
Well, Commissioner Israel, before you joined, Commissioner Martos and I worked on a bunch, and Commissioner Bush may have as well, where a lot of 2-hour parking permits. I mean, we've had some meetings where a lot of people come out and there's a lot of comment. And we had a number years ago that were going past 11. And I'm not forecasting that, but it can happen. It depends on what we're dealing with. And the city council has said they want us to get a little more active on some things. So yeah, I don't generally plan anything for after traffic safety and parking commission meetings, because sometimes you don't know. And we've had agendas that look thin, and it's one homeowner with one parking spot or one business owner in Commissioners, you'll recall the one in North Rollins where we had 2 meetings that went way past 10, and it was like probably a 100-200 foot stretch. If you have someone who really cares, or a few people who care, we could end up spending a lot of time with them. And then we'll have nights where it looks like a big agenda, and we'll sail through and get out of here. So.
Commissioner Martos, did you still have a comment? It looks like your hand went down.
No, I actually have 2 comments.
Okay, go for it.
So when I joined, 7 years ago, it was Howard, myself, Commissioner Wetton, myself, Commissioner Novorowski, Commissioner Wander, and Commissioner Akers. 3 of them have since retired. 2 of them we gave proclamations as they retired. Commissioner Wander, we overlooked writing a proclamation for Commissioner Wander. So since he was on the commission for 12 years, I would like to make a motion that the newly elected chair work with the traffic engineer to write a proclamation that will be presented to Commissioner Wander at the January regular meeting of the Teaspoon.
I'll second that motion, and I think I have the discretion as chair to just do it. I won't take a vote. I do want to make sure Commissioner Wander can be there. With COVID, he will.
Through the chair, I've given him the heads up that it depends on how we want to have it, but we just have to let him know when the meeting is. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll ask each of, and not to exclude Commissioner Lee, but if the four of you have had more experience, and maybe jot down something we'd want to put on the proclamation from yourself. And then I've got a draft, and just so each of you have something personal that you may remember, especially since you guys have worked on, especially in the Lionhope neighborhood, you guys were all together on that. So
Mr. Wong, do me a favor, maybe do us a favor and send us copies of the prior proclamations, just so we have a sense of.
I'll see if I tried to find that, and hopefully I don't have to wait, but Ms. Brewer is the gatekeeper of that. So I have of something else that we have, but we can try to send out, but I think she knows where the rest are. Because that's ideally I've given you what we previously.
I might, if I can, we might even reach out to some of the former commissioners and see if they want to.
I believe I have a draft that we presented to Commissioner, one of the 2 acres, Novorolski. I think I was chair at the time. So I have something. I'll look it up. I have it on my computer.
Great. Yeah. And I'd love to reach out to actually Commissioner Akers in particular and see if we can get him to weigh in.
So that was one thing. So that was item number 1. And item number 2, before we adjourn, I wanted to compliment our outgoing chair, Israelit, on the fantastic job that she did. I've spoken with her at the beginning of the year, and she was very apprehensive about this. I don't know anything about running these boards and parliamentary procedure. And I said, Lynn, you're going to do great. You're going to do great. And she did. And she was firm when she needed to be firm. She was reasonable. And throughout the entire year here, it got a little dicey at times, and she brought things back in to the agenda. And really, I manage people, and I say, oh, I've seen you grow in this past year. So here's your performance review, Commissioner. Chair Israelit, I've really admired you and appreciated the job that you did as a leader for this commission throughout the year. So well done. And you underestimated yourself, but very well done.
Thank you so much for those very kind words, because I was terrified. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it, especially during COVID. It was a little hard to know, what to do and how things were going to work month to month. But thank you so much.
I just want to very quickly. I want to second what Commissioner Martos said. I'm sorry I didn't say that sooner. I had a similar conversation with you about the apprehension. I had similar confidence, and we were both right. You did great. It was great to get a different perspective, and it was a tough year, but you handled it very well.
You guys are too kind. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And on that great note, meeting is adjourned. I will see you all in 2021. I hope you all have a safe and happy holiday season, altered though it may be. It's been a great year working with you guys. You made 2020 not so bad.
That's high praise. Okay. It's nice seeing everybody tonight.
Happy holidays, you guys.
Thank you, and happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye all.
Welcome.
Bye. Welcome, Commissioner Lee.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.